Hello, Harrisburg School District. I'm Kirsten Keys. On behalf of Superintendent Eric Turman, our court-appointed receiver, Dr. Lori Susky, and our entire school board of directors, we want to say thank you for attending our recent Parent and Community Information Forum that was held at John Harris campus. The purpose of the forum was to address youth violence prevention in our schools. Our superintendent laid out the issues and challenges that our district faces, as well as his plans for moving forward in the future with interventions, programs, and mentoring opportunities that you'll be hearing more about via our Facebook page and our website. So once again, on behalf of Superintendent Turman, thank you for attending the Parent and Community Information Forum, and stay tuned for next steps of how you can stay informed, involved, and engaged.
Thank you and good evening. First, I would like to say the privilege of being the superintendent of the Harrisburg School District. I got on this journey probably about March of 2021, going through the process, and I can't tell you how elated I was in June, late May, June, when I got the phone call to say that the district wanted to move forward with you to be the superintendent of the Harrisburg School District. I am here to be a piece of the puzzle. I'm not here to solve all the problems, because collectively, everyone in this room has to be part of the equation. So the information that I bring you tonight is going to be nothing more than telling you where we're at, what we're doing, where we're going, but the number one thing I want to do tonight is to listen and hear exactly from community members and those who are in the audience, what are some solutions that we can bring to the table that we can all embrace to move our district forward? Because at the end of the day, the individual awards, they're great, but the number one reward I want as a superintendent is to be able to look back on Harrisburg within the next couple of years and look at the transformation, not only of the district, but of the city. As this district flows, as the city will flow. It is going to have to be a collaborative effort between all of us to move things forward. So the message tonight is bringing all Harrisburg communities together to create positive change. So the purpose, 3 parts: where we are, what are we doing, where are we going? So the agenda for tonight is I want to do a few introductions. I'm going to go over kind of the state of schools and where we're at. We're going to have a moderated forum, but one of the most important things we're going to do tonight is talk about next steps. We did not have this forum to have one forum, say we had a forum as a check off, and then we don't come back together, because that's not going to solve any problem. So introductions, state of schools, moderated forum, next steps. So I know they had an opportunity to recognize the board members, but I would like to recognize the Board of 9 who works in collaboration with the superintendent and the receiver. So when I call your name, if you can please stand up to be recognized. Mr. Brian Carter, our school board president. Mr. Stephen Williams, school board vice president. Ms. Danielle Robinson. Mr. James Thompson, Mr. Doug Thompson-Leader, Mrs. Rosalind Copeland, Mrs. Teresia Ratcliffe, Mrs. Jamie Johnson, and Mr. Ellis Roy. Also in the audience, we do have several building level administrators and then also folks from central office. If you can please stand up for 1 second. All building level administrators and also central office staff members here tonight. And then the last 2 people who I want to recognize, they are my right and left hand, Dr. Marisol Craig, our assistant superintendent, and Mrs. Jatoya Drayton, he's in the superintendent's office. So I do want to definitely highlight one individual who has now been on staff now for about a week. We were very fortunate when we started to look for a director of school police and safe schools to find Mr. Wendell Morris. So Mr. Wendell Morris, if you could stand up for a second. Mr. Morris has already been here for a week and a half, and I can't tell you how much collaboration he has had with those in the buildings, with myself, in terms of how we were going to really work together to develop a plan to make sure all of our students and all of our staff members are safe. He has an extensive background in law enforcement, and I'm very privileged to have him on our team. Mr. Morris, thank you very much. Also, we do have two safety leads. They've been also doing a phenomenal job in helping us. Terrence Parsons, who's at John Harris High School, and also Jason Baer, who's been at the middle school, but particularly Roland Academy. And safety monitors, beginning of the school year, we probably were about a little bit more than half of our safety monitor positions are filled. I am happy to announce that we have 46 total positions, and 41 of them are filled at our current date. So, what are the state of the schools right now? We are going to be very transparent and tell you exactly where we're at, so everybody has a clear sense and clear picture of where the district is at this point. So when it comes to staffing, you're going to see the number 92. That's the number as of today, but that may change as we move forward. There are 92 new teaching staff in the district this year. So that's approximately 15 to 20% of the teachers in the district are new. Some of them on an emergency permit in terms of this being a second career. So you also see a list of schools there, number of vacancies that we have per building. So we currently have 45 vacancies in our schools, in our 11 schools in Harrisburg. So when you have that large number of teaching staff, you have to really be very aggressive in providing them a very intense level of support. I remember my first days of teaching 5th grade, and I remember walking in the first day, me looking at 27 kids, them looking at me, and me saying, what am I going to do? So we have to be aggressive in our approach and how we support our folks who are very new to the role. We have certain buildings within the district that 50 to 60% of their teachers are brand new. So now we're going to talk about what's the support for those teaching staff. So we were able to partner with Patan, and they are going to bring in some short-term and eventually, hopefully, long-term supports. So they were able to do building walkthroughs in 3 schools, Ben Franklin, also Downey, and then also Roland. And with those walkthroughs, they were able to debrief with us in terms of what next steps are and what their aggressive plan is going to be, and working side by side with administrators in the building and then also teachers. Then we were going to put into a long-term request in terms of what is the PD that we were going to provide to those teachers, not only to make them great at what they do, but also to retain them so that they stay in Harrisburg. Now we're going to very quickly review some data at this point. So on the slide here, it has all 11 of our schools. And you'll see the number of incidents in the schools, and then also the number of incidents this year and last year. So we have had an increase with the number of incidents in our schools this year. Once again, just being very honest. Some of our schools have substantially had an increase in the number of incidents. Now, let's talk about some of the changes that were made this school year. Last year, 5th grade was at the middle school level. We transitioned 5th grade back to the elementary level. So what has that caused to a certain degree? Now some of the 5th grade behavior you saw at the middle school is now starting to rear its head in the elementary level. So once again, how can we aggressively go after providing support needed for teachers who teach 5th grade and then also for students in 5th grade? But that's one part to the puzzle. As you start to look at data, your elementary schools have anywhere from 75 to 100, 125 more students this year than they did last year. And then you also look at the suspension data. The suspension data for our schools has increased this year. So there are more students with the number of incidents being suspended this year compared to last year. There definitely has been an uptick at some of our elementary schools, once again, adding a larger number of students to some of our buildings. One building in particular I will point out is Camp Curtin Middle School definitely had a decrease in the number of suspensions from last year to this year. Next slide I want to talk about is academics. So academics has very much an impact in terms of behavior, in terms of classrooms. So what you'll see here is this. Your kindergarten students who walk into Harrisburg for the first time, because we only have one pre-K classroom, 14% of our kindergarten students are at benchmark. 14%. That means 86% of our kids are not ready for kindergarten or at benchmark when they walk in the door. So we have got to, as a district, be able to partner with those surrounding daycares and providers to be able to help support kids before they get into kindergarten. Because what you'll see here is this. The pattern starts in kindergarten and it just continues all the way up. So kindergarten is 14%, first grade is 14%, second grade is 24%, third grade is 15%, fourth grade is 12%, fifth grade is 20%, eighth grade is 16%, seventh grade is 13%, eighth grade is 14%. So the pattern of where they start when they enter just continues for the most part as kids move up from kindergarten all the way up to eighth grade. So it's really us coming to a point where we have to understand that if I'm a student and I am in the below basic category and I am not on grade level, if the content that is being taught to me, I'm not clearly understanding or not being engaged in, what will happen? Behavior starts to happen. Student will start to act out. And some of the behavior that you're seeing is students have reached a frustration level with, I'm getting content that's at a grade level where I am not. So as a district, we are really going to have to look and fine tune how we scaffold lessons, how we scaffold material, so that all of our students can feel successful when they are sitting in every classroom every single day. So what's the available student support that we have in our district? So we have Tier 1, which I'll talk about as Living Well. Tier 2 is PA counseling. Tier 3 is effective school solutions. And another Tier 3 is our alternative options. So Living Well, they did have a table outside to be able to greet folks as you walk in, and please make sure you stop by all the tables on your way out as well. Living Well and the district started a partnership in June of this school year. And here are some of the tenets and some of the things that Living Well brings to the table. Bringing community resources to the schools to improve student and family well-being. So the connection between students and their families is very critical. Safe after-school programs such as youth mentoring, arts, budgeting, and parent programs. Helping students and families find useful resources for health, mental health, and then also emotional support. Providing subcontracts for those in community who want to provide programs in the Harrisburg School District. And the last thing is support for stress and de-escalation with the whole person. So body, mind, spirit. Wellness for students, parents, teachers, and staff. Tier 2, PA counseling. So we have PA counseling in all of our buildings, all right? So what PA counseling provides is individual support for our students. They will provide play therapy for students. They will provide group therapy for our students as well. There's Check and Connect, which really aggressively goes after their attendance, and then also truancy prevention. So you have PA counseling, which is in each and every building in the Harrisburg School District. And the other Tier 3 support we have is Effective School Solutions. So this is a comprehensive clinical program. So they daily group therapy, weekly group individual therapy, bi-weekly family therapy, monthly parent support group, district-wide PD. So they did PD for all of our staff in the month of August, where they had all staff and provided professional development to them, and have also done that individually at schools. Clinical supervision, ongoing objective measurement of outcomes, and then urgent interventions for our students. So I know that there is an Effective School Solutions outside as well, so I'm going to let you know how many spots are still available. Ben Franklin has 1 seat available. Camp Curtin has 1. Cougar Academy has 1. Downey has 5 available spots. Foose has 2 available spots. John Harris High School has 12 available spots. Sci Tech has 4 available spots. Marshall Math Science has 1. Melrose has 5. Roland, all 10 spots are filled. And then Scott just got a clinician, so there are 10 spots available. Here is what I'm going to say, and this is going to tug on my heart a little bit. It is okay that if you're having issues with your child to ask for help. And sometimes I think there's not this negative stigma if you say, you know what, I'm having problems with my child in school, I'm having problems with my child at home. That you have to be okay with saying, you know what, I want to get my child help. Because I can tell you from experience that I had a 9th grade kid, my child, look at me after COVID and say, Dad, I need help. And the only thing I said to him was, get in the car, let's go, because I'm going to get you help. Because it wasn't about anything, it was about him. So it is okay if your child, or even if you need help, to ask and get help. We are here as a district to support you. No one is going to judge you. We don't have time for that. We have to support all of you as individuals. So please, 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 we have all these supports available, but you have to be willing to say, my child needs help, and be okay with it, that it's just a service for us to try and provide to you to support your child. Now, we start to run through some of those options, and if we see a more aggressive approach, we then have Cougar Pause, which is K through 5. Cougar Middle Years was 6 through 8. So currently, we have 25 students in Cougar Pause. We have 18 in grades 6 to 8. So there's 23 spots available in our K to 5 program, 12 available in our mid-years. So there's a therapeutic model. You're going to have smaller class size. You're going to have a behavior specialist in each room to help form and shape the behavior, and it's very highly structured. So once again, this is a level of support from K to 8 to help our students. If a student at this point in time ends up getting suspended, and now we're talking about adjudication, we have our AEDY program. We currently have 20 students who are in that program now, and this could be for anything bodily harm, this could be for drugs or weapons in the school. That's why a student will be referred there. And we have our Cougar Excel program, which is for high school. We have 53 students enrolled, 27 spots open. This is for students who are undercredited and to try and get them back on track so they can graduate with their class. Research will definitely tell you the minute a kid has to stay in high school for an extra year, 7 times out of 10, that student is going to drop out of school. Because their peers have left, they're undercredited, and you know what? They want no part in it. So it is critical that we get our young people back on track early so that we don't have to pay the price for it later on down the road. Some of the things that we unfortunately have to do in the district in terms of consequences, we have detention at some of our schools staffing-wise, if they have a staff member for it, they have ISS, which is in-school suspension. Sometimes some of the actions will lead to out-of-school suspension, and sometimes some of the action will lead to the recommendation for expulsion. On the act and some of the acts that have transpired over the past 2 months, some of those have been recommendations for expulsion for some of the behavior. On the flip side to that, we also need to make sure, as a district, we continue to come at ways to restore the relationships that are damaged between adults and kids. Because it happens every day. You have a student who gets into a verbal piece with a safety monitor or a teacher or an administrator. And student is now suspended, student comes back to school, but we never repair that relationship. So what happens? That relationship is never formed between those two individuals. What probably will happen again is that same interaction you had the first time. But the more we can sit down with our young people and the people who are being, things are being said to or things are being done to, the more we can establish the relationship that it's positive. And the one thing for me, and I've seen it with experience, when I tell a kid and I would tell a student, let me tell you how what you did to me, how it made me feel, and how it really tugged at me because I don't treat you that way, 9 times out of 10, that kid will look at me and say, you know what, I'm sorry. That point in time, that relationship between the two of us formed, and I had no issues with that kid for the rest of his high school career. So how many times do we have to get to a point that when things occur, we have to make sure that we repair and restore the relationship that was broken? Because if we don't, it will just continue. From a safety and security standpoint, a couple of things to make note is we did an RVAT report. I'll explain what that is. It's a vulnerability and assessment report that we did last year on all of our schools. So we are slowly but surely getting those reports in. Mr. Morris and I will be sitting down and start to look at major themes. So what are things in buildings that we need to tackle now? Because our buildings are vulnerable. Once we start to figure out what those major things are, we will then sit down with our business manager, with our board of directors and the receiver and start to make recommendations in terms of things that we need to tackle district-wide. Now, some of the things we've moved forward with already, security cameras was very much problematic. Majority of them didn't work in some of the schools. Well, we did last year is we approved $2 million in security cameras across the district. Camp Curtin and also Roland are 90% done. I looked at the cameras in both buildings. I can see inside, outside, across the street. You can see everything. John Harris, 35% of them are done. They will be circling back to John Harris to finish them within the next 2 weeks after they finish Camp Curtin and Roland. Once as I call them, the big 3 are finished, we will then start to make our way down to Marshall Math Science, Cougar Academy, and then all of our elementary schools. The goal is by the end of the school year that we have cameras inside and out brand new in all 11 schools. Something else to add, we have purchased vape and marijuana detectors for the high school in the bathrooms. So now what will happen if any student is vaping in the bathroom or smoking marijuana, the detector will go off. It will send a text message to every administrator, every security monitor, and a director of safe schools. For us at that point in time to go directly to that bathroom and at that point in time get everybody out who's involved in the act. Then on top of that, there's a camera right outside. So we will now be able to cut down on some of the vaping and some of the smoking that has been happening in some of the schools. And the last thing I want to bring up, and there's no definitive answer with this, but I just want to kind of talk about it quickly because it's been in the media, and that is police in schools. And there's a wide range of emotions in terms of how folks may feel about that. So there was some discussion in the media in terms of SROs at John Harris and in the district. What I will tell you is that Mr. Morris and I will have conversations in terms of what we feel may be something to move forward with policing in schools. But that will be, and I want to make sure I'm clear, a collaborative effort between myself, Mr. Morris, our board of directors, our receiver, and the community. This is not a decision where I will just come out and say this is what we're doing. It needs to be a collaborative effort, how we feel and what that should look like. So if we go that direction, understand your voice will be heard, and we will make sure that is a team decision if we move forward with policing in our schools. And I kind of want to go over some of the terms that some of your children hear in school and kind of clear up some of the misconceptions because this has happened a couple of times. So if a building leader calls a hold, what that means at that point in time is they just need to clear the halls. It's business as usual, close and lock doors. Typically when you do that, it's kind of a medical event in the building. So I have a student that we need to get to an ambulance, student is sick, whatever it may be. So if they say hold, that's all it is. If they say secure, they're typically at that point in time, everybody's indoors, lock outside doors, increase awareness, business as usual. There's an issue outside, we want everybody inside to make sure everyone's safe, business as usual. Now, if we say lock down, we're getting students in a room, we're locking the door, we're turning out the lights, we're moving out of sight, we're going to maintain silence, We're not going to open doors. We're going to be prepared to escape or defend. That means there's somebody and an intruder in the building. So here is what my plea to everyone here is: if your child texts you and says, "We are in a lockdown," it doesn't necessarily mean the school is in a lockdown. Because what that does is it causes panic when specifically the building administrator got on and said we're in a hold. So we want to make sure everybody's educated in what those are. We have to do a better job in making sure our students are educated in that as well. But there are times where they will call a hold for 5 or 10 minutes because they need to get a student out who is ill, and then you have people texting, "Mom or Dad, we're in a lockdown, something's happening," and you go from something this small to something this big. So if we say evacuate, we actually have an issue where we need to evacuate and get out of the building, so we would go to our evacuation location. We would account for all of our students. If we say shelter, we would use appropriate safety strategy and make sure we account for all students. Typically, those are weather related. So the crisis response, and this is sometimes when it comes to the communication, and I will be very transparent and know that myself have to do a much better job in terms of communicating and getting messages out quickly. But just so you kind of can understand the sequence here, number one, when an incident occurs, the first person there to call is me. The second person I'm calling is Mrs. Keys, because the two of us got to get on the phone right away and figure out, I'm getting her ready to get a message out, but 9 times out of 10, I don't even know what the message is, all right? At that point in time, I will get some more information. If I need to bring in the safety and security person, I will do so. If I need to bring in student services, I will do so as well. Then you now have to figure out, because our schools, some of them are close together, do I need to alert another building that there's an issue? Let's say there's an issue in Marshall Math. I need to make sure Mrs. Felton knows there's an issue here because the building's right down the street. So now I got to make sure, now not just one building, 2 buildings are good. Then you get to a point where Mrs. Keys and I will start to get together and I have the information. How do we craft the message to get out? Now, once again, comes back to the cell phone issue. Sometimes by the time we get together, we get all the correct information and get it out, your son or daughter has texted you something that 9 times out of 10 is inaccurate. And then what happens is the phone calls come to the main office. The main office gets flooded. Then we're on social media. And then social media, it's all over the place. So please allow us an opportunity to get the factual information before we send the message out. That way we're not in a state of panic in terms of what's actually happening in the building. Once we do that, situation resolved, we tend to get together, debrief, figure out if there's anything we need to self-correct or whatever it may be. But I really want you as a community and parents to understand is it takes some time to get to a point where you have all the information to get the message out. Partnerships, community support. I do see the CEO of the Police Athletic League here. We had a very good meeting last week in terms of how we can partner together. Camp Curtin YMCA, Olivet's Boys and Girls Club, Salvation Army. Those are all partners who need to work together with us to provide our students with opportunities. Our local police department. Relationship with the local police department is something that is hopefully going to continue to get better. Because if you look at any urban city across the nation that is doing well, that district and that police department are like this. They work hand in hand, they work in tandem, they work as a team. Myself and Commissioner Carter have both pledged that we are going to continue to work together in terms of building that relationship so that we can support each other. Because once again, as I said earlier, is as the district goes, is as the city will go. The police department and the mayor's office has to support the district and our initiatives and what we have going on. And we are going to continue the fight to establish a good partnership with city government. Judicial support. So we have the DA's office and we have the district justices. We also need to make sure we partner with them in terms of how we really can make sure we are supporting our young people. And then, the one thing we don't talk about enough is higher education. I mean, that's where we want every child to go. So partnerships with HAC, partnerships with HU, those need to continue to grow. Because what some people don't realize is with Harrisburg University and with HAC is we have dual enrollment where we have several students who are seniors who will only come to either SciTech or John Harris for a small period of time. The other period of time, they're on a college campus earning credits for them to go to college. But how do we get to a point where it's not just a small portion of kids, it's all of them, because that's their expectation. So those partnerships that I just mentioned are so critical in order for us to turn the city around. Some of the district initiatives, mentoring. You are going to see something from me within the next few weeks in terms of me aggressively going after needing people in Harrisburg to step up and be mentors for our young people. Because some of our families need you. So, all I'm asking for is we are going to bring you in for training. We're going to support you as an organization. I'm going to be a mentor because I don't think I can't ask you to mentor a student for 5 hours a week and I not do it myself. So I'm going to step up to the plate. I'm going to take a child who needs me, and I'm going to be there for that child and that family throughout the course of the school year. So we are looking for mentors who are willing to invest themselves and invest their time in moving students forward because the children need you. Career pathways. I can't tell you how important this is going to be as we move the district forward. So one of the initiatives that we are going to get underway this year in preparation for next year is how do we take, when I first got here, I heard a lot of talk about two schools. Everyone talked about, yes, I need to get my kid into martial math, I need to get my kid into SciTech. And then you ask the question, well, why? Well, they're specialized. They're specialized, and those kids who go to both schools have kind of a clear focus. So how do we take that and expand that to all the schools? So we are going to really focus on career pathways for our young people when they get into middle school all the way through high school. So what that means is we're going to be looking at internships. We're going to be looking at how business folks can come in and mentor young people. We're going to get to a point where we're really hands-on and engaging students with what they want to do. We have to get to a point where school is so engaging, school is so fun, that being in school and learning, I enjoy this more than getting involved with something on the street. That's what it has to be. You can suspend them, you can do all these things you want. You're not going to change that behavior and get to what's in here until you get that kid to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Last thing I'll mention here is the MTSS playbook. We are finishing up the MTSS playbook for all of our schools, and that's really how are we going to provide support for all of our students that's consistent across the board. So how we deal with behavior, how we support students, that's consistent across the district. That's going to be very key and critical as we kind of move forward. And we are in the last leg of that, almost finished. I've seen a draft at this point in time, so we hopefully will be ready to roll that out in the very near future. Multiple tiered systems of support. Very good question. Thank you. And I'm glad I remembered what it meant too. So, solutions from other districts. And I only kind of threw this out so you can know that we're trying to do our homework what other people are doing. And Philadelphia School District started something called the Safe Path Program. So what they have is they have community members who they've identified eight schools, which it was problematic from that child getting from school home. And they have community members who come out and support students getting home. So that is something that I would be more than willing to entertain if that's something that as a group collectively we would be able to support the initiative. The Louisiana High School, I'm sure everybody's heard the story. Dad's on duty. The Louisiana High School had 23 fights in the first 2 weeks of school. A bunch of fathers stood up and said, no mas. And they all came up to the school as volunteers and were in the hallways each and every day. They went from 23 fights in the first 2 weeks to the next couple of months, none. So it's just an example of when the partnership happens between the district and the community, how wonderful things can go. So once again, These are things which we are willing to entertain, but everyone here has to be on board with saying, you know what, we're going to invest, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it as one. And the last thing I'm going to say is there is a partnership that hopefully is brewing. I did receive an email from the city probably about 2 weeks ago. They are starting there's a webinar we have next week. It's called GVI, which is Group Violence Intervention. So they have asked me to sit through the meetings with them next week. There's 2 meetings, and to be part of the puzzle and the solution with them. So what it's aggressively going after is groups. So people call them gangs, but it's more about groups. So how do they go after these groups of kids who are causing the issues and start to have relationships with the groups, identify the groups, and say what level of intervention are we going to get to these groups because they're causing a good portion of the issues. So we're going to invest some time in that next week, and then hopefully that might be something that the city and the district will be able to partner and work together on. So the last thing I'm going to say before I turn this over is I just want to do a quick 2-minute exercise. When I call your group out, all I'm asking you to do is to stand up, but remain standing until I'm finished. So I want to start with the school board of directors, the receiver, and the chief recovery officer to please stand up. It is our responsibility in terms of governance and working together and to looking at the big picture of the district and where, as a district, we want the district to go. So it's up to this group of 12 of us to really work together to be able to do so. That's our major responsibility. How do we work together to put things in place so they can be implemented and move forward? Now I'd like administrators in central office to please stand up as well. It is their responsibility to support teachers, to support kids, and to support parents all of those who are involved in their school. If that's their responsibility and they move that forward, then we go to the next group. Are there teachers in the building? Please stand up. We need you to connect with our students when you come to work. We need you to do the best lesson and engage our kids so each and every day they see you as their savior. They see you as the person who at the end of the day you mean so much to them because that lesson is so engaging and they know you mean the world to, they know that they mean the world to you. Support staff, please stand up. As an opportunity as a support staff to support teachers, to support administrators, to support the students. And a lot of the students you work with day in and day out. If you bring that to the table every day, parents, if you can please stand up. As a parent, we need you to partner with the school, to work together at the school to solve the problems. We can't solve them in isolation. We can solve them together. So coming to the school, supporting the school, working with the school so that we can do what's best for your child. And the last group, any community partner, please stand up. To work with the district and to be there as a resource. So that when we need you and we need some outside influence or we need something from the outside, that you are there to support us. And if you look around this auditorium right now, if everybody takes their role and what they need to do, and they do it each and every day, 100%, what's in the middle of that circle are the students. They will flourish if we all come together and work as a team.